The ship screamed as it fell through the sky. Lieutenant Marcus Chun pulled hard on the controls, but nothing worked. The screens were dead. The engines were silent. Something had hit his ship with a strange energy pulse, and now the wayward Sparrow was nothing more than a metal coffin falling toward an unknown planet. Marcus had been a pilot for 12 years. He had survived asteroid fields, pirate attacks, and one very angry ex-girlfriend who tried to push him out an airlock. But he had never felt fear like this. The ground was coming up fast, and all he could do was hold on and pray. The crash was violent. Metal screamed and tore. Marcus felt his body slam against the safety straps, and then everything went black. When he woke up, his head was bleeding and his left arm felt broken. But he was alive. That was something. He pushed open the emergency hatch and crawled out of the wreckage. The air was thick and warm, and the sky above was purple, with 3 small moons hanging low on the horizon. He had landed in some kind of forest. The trees were tall and silver, with leaves that glowed faintly blue. It was beautiful in a strange and terrifying way. Marcus checked his emergency kit. He had water for 3 days, food for 2, and a small pistol with 6 shots. Not much, but it would have to do. He started walking, hoping to find higher ground where he could send the distress signal. But he did not get far. They came out of the trees like ghosts. 7 of them. Tall women, taller than any human Marcus had ever seen. Their skin was the color of a clear blue sky, and strange markings on their arms and faces glowed softly in the dim light. They wore armor made of black metal, and each one carried a long blade that hummed with energy. Marcus froze. He slowly raised his hands, showing he meant no harm. But the women did not care about his intentions. The tallest one, a warrior with silver hair and cold golden eyes, stepped forward. She spoke in a language Marcus did not understand, but his damaged translator caught a few words. Trespasser, sacred ground, death. Before Marcus could speak, something hard hit the back of his head, and darkness took him again. He woke up in a cage. His hands were bound with thick rope, and his weapons were gone. The cage was made of bones, which Marcus tried very hard not to think about. Outside, he could see a camp. Dozens of tents made from animal skins. Fires burning. And everywhere, more of the blue-skinned warrior women. A young one, barely more than a teenager by human standards, stood guard outside his cage. She watched him with curiosity and disgust, like he was an interesting insect she might step on later. Marcus tried to speak, but his throat was dry. He coughed and tried again. "Water, please?" The young guard tilted her head. She did not understand his words, but she seemed to understand his need. She picked up a clay pot and threw its contents through the bars. Cold water splashed across Marcus's face. He licked his lips and caught what drops he could. It was not kindness. It was barely even mercy. But it was something. Hours passed. Marcus watched and listened. His translator was slowly learning the language, picking up words and patterns from the conversations around him. He learned that these people called themselves the Valkyrie. He learned that this forest was their sacred hunting ground. And he learned that for 3,000 years, they had killed every outsider who set foot here. 42 aliens had come before him. 42 had died as the sun set and the 3 moons rose higher. The tall warrior with silver hair came to his cage. Marcus's translator had learned enough to understand her now. "I am First Blade Serafka," she said. Her voice was cold and sharp, like her blade. "You have trespassed on the sacred ground of the Valkyrie. Tomorrow at dawn, you will face the rite of ending. You will die with honor, and your blood will feed the soil of our ancestors." Marcus wanted to argue. He wanted to explain that he had not meant to come here, that his ship had been attacked, that he was just a pilot doing his job. But he could see in Sarafka's eyes that none of this mattered. The law was the law. The tradition was the tradition. He was already dead in her eyes. "I understand," Marcus said quietly. He did not know why he said it. Perhaps he was too tired to fight. Perhaps he had already accepted his fate. Sarafka studied him for a long moment. "You do not beg," she said. There was something like surprise in her voice. "The others begged. They screamed and cried and promised us treasures. You do not." Marcus shrugged. It hurt his broken arm, but he did it anyway. Would it help? No. Then why waste my breath? Sarafka said nothing. She turned and walked away, her blade humming softly at her side. That night, Marcus could not sleep. He lay in his cage of bones and looked up at the strange moons. He thought about his mother, who had died when he was young. He thought about his grandmother, who had raised him on a small farm on Mars. He thought about all the things he had wanted to do and would never do now. And then, without really meaning to, he began to sing Dod. It was an old song. A lullaby his grandmother used to sing to him when he was scared. The words were simple and sad, about a sailor lost at sea who finds his way home by following the stars. Marcus had not sung it in years. But here, in this cage, on this strange world, it felt right. His voice was rough and tired, but it carried through the quiet night. He did not sing loudly. He sang for himself, for his memories, for the grandmother who had loved him. When he finished, he realized the camp had gone silent. The guards outside his cage were staring at him. Other warriors had gathered nearby, watching from the shadows. They looked confused, almost disturbed. Marcus did not understand why. It was just a song. But to the Valkyrie, it was something they had never heard before. Something they had no word for. Something that would change everything. The dawn came too quickly. Marcus was pulled from his cage by rough hands and dragged through the camp. Warriors lined the path on both sides, watching him with hard eyes. Some spat at the ground as he passed. Others simply stared, their faces showing nothing. The camp was larger than Marcus had thought. There were hundreds of tents and hundreds of warriors. He counted at least 300 before he stopped counting. All women. All tall and strong and blue-skinned. All armed with those humming blades. They brought him to a clearing in the center of the camp. A large stone sat there, dark with old stains that Marcus tried not to think about. This was the execution stone. This was where he would die. An ancient woman sat on a throne made of silver wood. She was smaller than the others, bent with age, but her eyes were sharp and bright. Deep scars covered her face and arms, marks of 100 battles. This was High Matriarch Vorena, the leader of the Valkyrie. Marcus's translator had picked up stories about her during the night. She had ruled for 200 years. She had killed more enemies than any warrior in history. First Blade Sarafka stood beside the stone, her blade drawn. It glowed with blue energy, beautiful and deadly. She looked at Marcus with the same cold expression as before. To her, this was just another duty. Another trespasser to execute. Another morning, Marcus was forced to his knees. His head was pushed down onto the cold stone. He could smell old blood. He could feel the smoothness where countless necks had rested before his. 42 aliens, he thought. I will be 40-3. He closed his eyes. He tried to think of his grandmother again, of her warm smile and gentle hands. He tried to remember the feeling of sunlight on his face. He heard Sarafka's blade rise, heard it sing through the air. This is it, he thought. This is how I die. But the blade did not fall. Wait. Sarafka's voice broke the silence. Marcus opened his eyes, confused. The blade hung in the air above his neck, so close he could feel its heat. First Blade, the High Matriarch said. Her voice was like dry leaves scraping stone. "Why do you stop?" Sarafka lowered her blade. She looked troubled, uncertain. Marcus had never seen that expression on her face before. "High Matriarch, I must ask the prisoner something." The old woman raised an eyebrow. "This is not part of the ritual." "I know, but I must ask." Sarafka turned to Marcus. Her golden eyes burned into his. "Last night, in your cage, what was that sound you made? That noise from your mouth?" Marcus blinked. Of all the things he had expected, this was not it. The singing? You mean the singing?" "Singing." Sarafka tested the word. It sounded strange in her mouth. "What is singing?" Marcus slowly sat up. No one stopped him. The warriors around him were watching, curious despite themselves. Even the High Matriarch leaned forward on her throne. "Singing is using your voice to make music," Marcus said. "Music is sounds that we put together in patterns. We do it to express feelings, to remember things, to comfort ourselves when we are sad or scared." The Valkyrie looked at each other. They did not understand. "You make sounds for no purpose?" Another warrior asked. "Not for communication? Not for battle cries? Just sounds?" "Yes. Well, no. There is a purpose. The purpose is the feeling itself. The memory, the connection." Marcus struggled to explain. "When I sang last night, I was remembering my grandmother. She is dead now, but when I sing her song, I feel close to her again." The song carries her memory. Silence. Complete, total silence. Marcus realized he had said something important. Something the Valkyrie had no way to understand. These people valued strength above all else. They valued silence and control. The idea of making yourself vulnerable, of expressing sadness openly, was completely alien to them. High Matriarch Verena rose from her throne. She walked slowly toward Marcus, her old bones creaking. The warriors parted for her like water. She stood before him and looked down with those sharp, ancient eyes. "You say you carry the dead in your sounds?" "In this." "Singing?" "Yes, in a way. We carry our memories, our feelings, our history." The old woman was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke again. "There is an old law. It has not been used in 1,000 years, but it still exists. The right of curiosity. It says that if a trespasser possesses knowledge or ability that is unknown to the Valkyrie, they may be spared for a time. They must teach us what they know. If we find value in it, they may live. If we do not," she did not need to finish the sentence. "One invoke the right of curiosity," the High Matriarch said. "This human will be given 14 days to demonstrate the value of his singing, and anything else his people know that we do not." Sarafka's face showed nothing, but Marcus could sense her disapproval. "High Matriarch, this creature is weak. Look at him. He is small and soft. What could his people possibly know that we do not? That is what we will discover." Verena turned to Marcus. "You have 14 days, human. Teach us something worthy, and you may live. Fail, and the blade will finish what it started today." She walked back to her throne and sat down. "First Blade Sarafka, you will be his keeper. You will watch him, guard him, and learn from him. If he tries to escape, you will kill him. If he wastes our time, you will kill him. Do you understand?" Sarafka's jaw tightened. Being a jailer was not an honor. It was a punishment. "I understand, High Matriarch." "Good." The old woman smiled, showing teeth that were still sharp despite her age. "I am curious, human. Truly curious. My people have been warriors for 10,000 years. We know battle and death and honor. But this thing you did last night, this singing, It made my warriors uncomfortable, confused. Some of them could not sleep. That is interesting. She leaned forward. Show me why. Marcus looked at Sarafka, who stared back at him with barely hidden anger. He looked at the warriors around him, who watched with suspicion and confusion. He looked at the execution stone, still waiting for his neck. 14 days. That was all he had. 14 days to teach a species of warriors about music and emotion and everything else. That made humans human. He had no idea how he would do it. But he was alive. For now, that was enough. I will try, he said. The High Matriarch laughed. It was a harsh sound, like rocks breaking. Trying is not enough, human. You must succeed. Now go. Your education begins today. The first few days were hard. Sarafka hated him. She made this very clear. She brought him food, but always threw it on the ground. She answered his questions, but with as few words as possible. She watched him constantly, waiting for him to make a mistake so she could end this embarrassment and put her blade through his heart. Marcus did not blame her. He was a burden, a joke, a soft little human who had interrupted the sacred ritual and now had to be babysitted by one of the greatest warriors in the camp. If their positions were reversed, he would be angry too, but he had a job to do. 14 days. He had to make them count. On the third day, he asked Sarafka to gather some warriors. I want to teach you about rhythm, he said. The foundation of all music. 20 warriors came, more out of curiosity than interest. They sat in a circle around Marcus, their arms crossed, their faces skeptical. Marcus picked up 2 sticks. Watch, he said. He began to tap them together in a simple pattern. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. The sound was basic, almost boring. This is music? One warrior laughed. A child could do this. Yes, Marcus said. That is the point. Anyone can do it. Now, you try. He handed out sticks to everyone. Copy what I do? At first, it was chaos. The warriors had no sense of timing. They hit their sticks whenever they wanted, creating a mess of noise. Some got frustrated and threw their sticks down. Others laughed at how foolish this all was, but Marcus kept going. He kept the rhythm. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Slowly, one by one, the warriors began to match him. The chaos became order. The noise became pattern. And then something strange happened. The warriors started to smile. Not big smiles. Not happy smiles. But small, surprised smiles, like they had discovered something they did not expect. The rhythm connected them. They were all doing the same thing, at the same time, together. For a species that valued individual strength above all else, this was a new feeling. This is interesting, Sarafka admitted quietly. She was not smiling, but her frown was less deep than before. Marcus smiled. It was a small victory, but it was a start. On the 5th day, he taught them about melody. He sang simple songs, just a few notes, and asked them to repeat the sounds. This was harder. The Valkyrie had powerful voices, built for battle cries and commands, not for gentle tones. Their first attempts were rough and harsh, but a young warrior named Keth had talent. Her voice was softer than the others, and she learned quickly. By the end of the day, she could sing a simple tune almost perfectly. The other warriors watched her with amazement and something that looked almost like envy. On the 7th day, something unexpected happened. Marcus tripped over a rock while demonstrating a dance step. He fell face first into the dirt. It hurt. His nose was bleeding, and his pride was wounded. But instead of getting angry, he laughed out. The warriors stared at him like he had gone insane. Why do you make that sound? Sarafka demanded. You fell. You are hurt. That is shameful. Marcus wiped his bloody nose and kept laughing. It is funny. I was trying to look impressive, and instead, I felt like a clumsy child. It is embarrassing, yes, but also funny. Laughing helps. Helps how? It helps me not feel so bad about the fall. If I can laugh at myself, then I am not defeated by the moment. I am above it. Do you understand? Sarafka did not understand, but she thought about it. For the rest of the day, she was quieter than usual, lost in thought. On the 9th day, there was an accident during training. A young warrior named Keth, the same one who had learned to sing, was injured by a practice blade. The wound was not serious, but she was bleeding and in pain. She tried to stand, to show strength, but her legs would not hold her. Marcus moved without thinking. He went to her side and put his hand on her shoulder. "Easy," he said gently. "Sit down. Let me look at the wound." The camp went silent. Every warrior stopped what they were doing and stared. Keth looked at his hand like it was a poisonous snake. "What are you doing?" Sarafka's voice was sharp. "Why do you touch her?" Marcus looked up, confused. "She is hurt. I am trying to help." "You do not touch a warrior. Not unless you are fighting or mating. This is forbidden." Marcus slowly removed his hand. "I am sorry. Among my people, touch is normal. We touch to comfort each other, to show support, to say, 'I am here with you,' without using words." Keth looked at him strangely. The fear in her eyes was fading, replaced by something else. "It felt warm," she said quietly. "Not bad, just warm." Other warriors began to whisper. Some were angry. Some were curious. Some looked like they wanted to try this strange human custom for themselves. That night, Sarafka came to Marcus's tent. He was surprised to see her. She usually avoided him when she was not on duty. "May I enter?" she asked. Her voice was strange, uncertain, of course. She came inside and sat across from him. For a long moment, she said nothing. She just looked at him with those golden eyes, studying him like a puzzle she could not solve. "I have been watching you," she finally said. "Watching how you teach. Watching how you are with the others. And I do not understand you. You are weak. Your body is soft. You cannot fight. You would die in seconds against any of our warriors. And yet what?" She struggled for words. "You are not broken. Any other creature this week would be broken by now. Ashamed, defeated. But you laugh when you fall. You help others when they are hurt. You sing songs about dead people, and it somehow makes you stronger, not weaker. How? How is this possible?" Marcus thought for a moment. "Among my people, we believe that strength is not just about the body. It is also about the heart, the mind, the spirit. We show our feelings because hiding them takes more energy than sharing them. We laugh at ourselves because it reminds us that we are not perfect, and that is okay. We touch each other because connection makes us stronger, not weaker." Sarafka was quiet for a long time. "Teach me," she finally said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Teach me this singing. Just me. When no one else is watching." Marcus smiled. "Why?" "Because." She looked away. "Because I heard you sing on your first night. In the cage. And it made me feel something I have never felt before. I do not have a word for it, but I want to understand it." Marcus nodded. "Then we start now." For the next 3 nights, he taught her. Just the two of them in the darkness, while the camp slept. And slowly, note by note, the greatest warrior of the Valkyrie learned to sing. On the 12th day, everything changed. It started with a sound. A deep, rumbling roar that came from the sky. Marcus looked up and felt his blood turn cold. He knew that sound. He had heard it before, in training videos and war documentaries. It was the sound of a Drath hegemony dreadnought entering atmosphere. The Drath were conquerors. Their empire stretched across 100 star systems, built on the bones of species they had crushed. They used machines and numbers to overwhelm their enemies. Where they went, death followed. The ship was massive, a black mountain floating in the purple sky. It blocked out one of the 3 moons. Smaller ships began to drop from its belly like metal seeds. Hundreds of them, thousands, landing craft, carrying soldiers and weapons. High Matriarch Verena stood in the center of the camp, watching the sky. Her face showed no fear, only cold acceptance. "So they have finally come," she said. "We always knew they would. Who are they?" Marcus asked. "The Drath hegemony. They have been pushing toward our borders for decades. We knew this day would come. We just did not know when." A transmission crackled across the camp. The Drath were broadcasting on all frequencies. A cold, mechanical voice spoke in perfect Volcarai. "This planet is now claimed by the Drath hegemony. You have 1 hour to surrender. If you do not, we will destroy you from orbit. There will be no survivors. This is your only warning." The transmission ended. Marcus looked around. The warriors were preparing for battle. They were sharpening their blades, checking their armor, saying quiet goodbyes to each other. There was no panic, no fear, just calm acceptance of what was coming. "How many soldiers will they send?" Marcus asked Sarafka. "Based on those landing ships?" 10,000. Maybe more." Her voice was flat. "We have 300 warriors. That is not good odds." "No, but we will fight anyway. That is our way. We will die with honor, and our spirits will join our ancestors in the eternal battle." Marcus shook his head. "No, there has to be another way." Sarafka smiled sadly. It was the first time he had ever seen her smile. "You are kind, human. But some battles cannot be won. Some endings cannot be changed. We have known this all our lives. We are not afraid of death. We are only afraid of dying without honor." She touched his face gently with her hand. It was the first time she had ever touched him. "Thank you for these past days, for teaching us. I do not understand everything you showed us, but I understand enough. You have given us a gift. I will carry your songs into death with me." She turned and walked toward the other warriors, who were forming ranks at the edge of the camp. Marcus stood alone, watching them go. 300 warriors against 10,000. It was not a battle. It was a massacre waiting to happen. He could not accept it. He ran to his crashed ship. The Wayward Sparrow was broken, unable to fly, but some systems might still work. He dug through the wreckage, cutting his hands on sharp metal, until he found what he was looking for. The emergency communication array. It was damaged, but maybe, just maybe, it could still send a signal. Marcus knew that a human colony ship, the New Horizon, had passed through this sector months ago. Standard protocol was to leave relay buoys along their route, small satellites that could receive and transmit emergency signals. If even one of those buoys was still working, if the signal could reach it, he worked frantically, rewiring circuits and rerouting power. His hands were bleeding. His head was pounding. But he kept going. Finally, he pressed the transmit button and spoke into the microphone. "This is Lieutenant Marcus Chun, Terran Survey Course. I am stranded on planet Varus 7. The planet is under attack by Drath hegemony forces. Local population is friendly but outnumbered. Requesting immediate military assistance. Repeat, requesting immediate military assistance." He sent the message on all emergency frequencies. Then he sent it again, and again, and again. There was no response. The signal went out into the void and disappeared. Marcus closed his eyes. He had tried. It was probably hopeless. The buoys were probably dead. The signal was probably too weak. Help was probably too far away. But he had tried. He walked to the battlefield. The Valkyrie had formed a line at the edge of the sacred forest. 300 warriors standing shoulder to shoulder, their blades humming with energy. They looked magnificent, terrifying. Beautiful dot across the open plain, the Drath army was assembling. Row after row of armored soldiers. Heavy weapons on floating platforms. War machines with metal legs and glowing eyes. 10,000 soldiers, maybe more, stretching to the horizon like a sea of death. Sarafka stood at the front of the Valkyrie line. When she saw Marcus approaching, her eyes widened. "What are you doing here? This is not your fight. Go back to the camp. Hide. Maybe they will not find you after we are dead." "No," Marcus said. "I will not hide. If you fight, I fight. You will die in seconds. Then I will die with you." He picked up a fallen blade from a supply rack. It was too heavy for him, and he held it awkwardly. "You taught me something too, you know, about honor, about facing death without fear, about standing for something, even when you cannot win." Sarafka looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something that shocked everyone watching. She stepped forward and kissed him. Not on the cheek, on the lips, the way he had once described to her. The human way. The warriors around them gasped. This was unheard of, unprecedented. When she pulled back, her golden eyes were shining. "You told me that your people do this when words are not enough. When you want to say something that cannot be spoken. I understand now. I understand." Marcus could not speak. His heart was pounding. "If we die today," Sarafka said, "I am glad I knew you, Marcus Chen. You have changed me. You have changed all of us." She turned back to face the enemy. The Drath army began to advance, a wall of metal and death rolling across the plain. "Valkyrie!" Sarafka shouted. "Today we die. But we die as warriors. We die with honor. We die singing." And to Marcus's amazement, 300 voices rose together in rough, unpracticed harmony. They were singing the song he had taught them, a human war ballad about soldiers who faced impossible odds and never surrendered. The sound was raw and imperfect, but it was powerful. It shook the air. It made the ground tremble. The Drath army hesitated. They had never heard anything like this. They had conquered 100 worlds, and never had they faced an enemy that sang while marching to death. Then the battle began. The Valkyrie fought like demons. They were outnumbered 30-1, but they did not care. They cut through Drath soldiers like wind through grass. Their blades flashed and sang. Their war cries echoed across the plain. But numbers were numbers. Slowly, the Valkyrie line began to break. Warriors fell. The Drath pressed forward. Marcus fought too, swinging his heavy blade at anything that came close. He killed 2 Drath soldiers before a third one knocked him down. He rolled away, narrowly avoiding a killing blow. He was going to die. They were all going to die. And then the sky exploded with light. 3 ships burst through the clouds. Human ships. Terran warships. The Relentless. The Iron Promise. The Grandmother's Wrath. They had heard his signal. They had come. The warships opened fire. Beams of energy sliced through the Drath dreadnought like knives through paper. The great black ship groaned and broke apart, falling from the sky in pieces. The Drath soldiers on the ground looked up in terror as their orbital support vanished in a ball of fire. Human dropships descended. Marines poured out, their weapons blazing. They fought alongside the Valkyrie, human and alien together, pushing the Drath back. The battle turned. The massacre became a rout. The Drath army, leaderless and confused, began to retreat, then to run. then to surrender. Marcus lay on the ground, bleeding and exhausted, watching the sky fill with human ships. He had done it. His signal had reached them. Sarafka found him there, among the bodies of the fallen. She was wounded too, a deep cut across her shoulder. But she was alive. "You brought them," she said. "You brought your people to save us." Marcus smiled weakly. "Humans look out for each other. And for our friends." Sarafka knelt beside him. "I thought we were going to die today. I was ready for it. But you never gave up. Even when there was no hope, you kept trying. Why?" "Because," Marcus said, "that is what humans do." The battle was over, but the work was just beginning. Human medics moved through the battlefield, treating the wounded. They did not separate Valkyrie from human. They helped everyone. The blue-skinned warriors watched with confusion as strange creatures in white uniforms cleaned their wounds and wrapped their injuries with gentle hands. "They are touching us," one warrior said to another. "Why are they touching us?" "I do not know, but it does not feel bad." Marcus lay in a medical tent, his wounds being treated by a young human doctor named Sarah. She worked quickly and efficiently, numbing his pain and closing his cuts. "You're lucky to be alive," she said. "When we got your signal, the captain almost didn't believe it. A Terran pilot, stranded on an unknown planet, asking for help against the Drath? It sounded like a trap. What made her decide to come?" Sarah smiled. She said if there was even a 1% chance a human was in trouble, she would take it. That is what the Terran fleet does. Outside the tent, Marcus could hear something strange. Voices, many voices, singing. He pushed himself up, wincing at the pain, and limped outside. What he saw made his heart swell with emotion. The surviving Valkyrie warriors were gathered in the center of the camp. 200 of them had survived the battle. They stood in a circle, their voices rising together in song. The same war ballad Marcus had taught them. But now they were singing it for real. They were singing for their fallen sisters. They were singing for victory. They were singing because they finally understood why humans sang. Human Marines stood nearby, watching. Some of them joined in, adding their voices to the chorus. The sound was rough and imperfect. Two species trying to blend their voices for the first time. But it was beautiful. It was powerful. It was something new. Sarafka found Marcus watching. She stood beside him, her shoulder wrapped in bandages, her face tired but alive with emotion. "Is this what it feels like?" she asked. "This singing for the dead? This carrying of memory?" "Yes," Marcus said. "This is exactly what it feels like. It hurts. But also, it helps. I do not understand how something can do both." "That is the secret," Marcus said. "The pain and the healing happen together. You cannot have one without the other." High Matriarch Vorena approached him. The ancient warrior looked different somehow. Smaller, more fragile. The battle had cost her something, Marcus realized. Maybe it had cost everyone something, but her eyes were still sharp, still intelligent, still curious. "Human," she said. "The rite of curiosity has ended." Marcus felt a chill. He had almost forgotten. 14 days. The test. Had he passed? Or was the blade still waiting for him? The old woman smiled. It was a gentle smile, nothing like the harsh grin she had shown before. "You asked me to show you why your singing mattered. I said you had 14 days to prove humanity had something worthy to offer. I think you have answered that question." She looked around at her warriors, still singing, still mourning, still celebrating. For 10,000 years, the Valkyrie have been alone. We were proud of our strength, proud of our traditions, proud of our isolation. We believed we needed no one. She turned back to Marcus. We were wrong. Your people came across the stars to help strangers they had never met. They risked their lives for us. And you, little human, you taught us things we never knew we needed. Music, laughter, touch, connection. Her voice grew stronger. The blade will not fall. You have proven your worth. More than that, you have shown us that worth is not measured only in strength. It is measured in heart, in courage, in the willingness to be vulnerable. Marcus felt tears forming in his eyes. He was not ashamed of them. Thank you, High Matriarch. Do not thank me. I should thank you. She straightened her old back, trying to stand tall despite her injuries. I wish to propose something. An alliance between the Valkyrie and humanity. The human captain, a stern woman named Rodriguez, had been listening nearby. She stepped forward. An alliance? Yes, we have much to offer each other. Your people have technology, resources, connections to other worlds. We have warriors, knowledge of this sector, and a desire to learn. The old woman smiled again. And perhaps we have something else to share. Something we just discovered. What is that? Captain Rodriguez asked. Songs. We now have songs. The captain looked at Marcus, eyebrow raised. Marcus shrugged. It is a long story. I look forward to hearing it. Rodriguez turned to the High Matriarch. An alliance would need to be approved by the Terran Council. But I can promise you this. The Drath hegemony made an enemy today. They attacked while you were talking with one of ours. In our eyes, that makes you friends. She held out her hand in the human gesture of agreement. The High Matriarch looked at the hand. She did not understand the gesture, but Sarafka did. She whispered in the old woman's ear. Verena nodded slowly. Then she took the captain's hand and shook it. Friends, she said, testing the word. Yes, I think I like that word. The days that followed were busy ones. Human engineers helped repair Valkyrie equipment. Valkyrie hunters taught human marines about the local wildlife. Food was shared. Stories were exchanged. Two peoples, so different from each other, began to learn how similar they truly were. Marcus and Sarafka spent most of their time together. They walked through the silver forests. They talked about their lives, their dreams, their fears. They sang together, their voices blending more smoothly now. What will you do now? Sarafka asked one evening as they sat watching the three moons rise. Will you return to your people? Marcus thought about it. I do not know. My ship is destroyed. I have no duties waiting for me. And he looked at her. There are things here I am not ready to leave. Sarafka smiled. It was still a rare thing, her smile, but it was becoming more common. I am glad. I do not want you to go. Even though I am small and soft and would die in seconds against any warrior. Yes, she took his hand. Even though. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky. A few days later, there was a ceremony. The Valkyrie gathered in the clearing where Marcus had nearly been executed. The stone was still there, but it looked different now, smaller, less frightening. High Matriarch Verena stood before her people. Beside her stood Captain Rodriguez, First Blade Sarafka, and Marcus Chun. Today we make history, the old woman said. Today the Valkyrie step out of the shadows and join the larger world. We do this not because we are weak, but because we have learned that true strength comes from connection, from allies, from friends. She turned to Marcus. And we honor the one who taught us this lesson. Marcus Chun, human, teacher, friend. You came to our world as a trespasser. You leave it as something far more important. She handed him a blade. A real Valkyrie blade, humming with energy, marked with ancient symbols. You are now an honorary warrior of the Valkyrie. This blade is yours. Carry it with pride. And remember us wherever you go. Marcus took the blade. It was still too heavy for him. He still held it awkwardly. But it was his now, and he would learn. I will never forget, he said. And I will always be proud to call the Valkyrie my family. Sarafka stepped forward. In front of everyone, in front of the entire camp, she kissed him again. Some warriors gasped. Others smiled. A few even laughed, that strange human sound they were only beginning to understand. Where I come from, Marcus said, echoing words he had spoken before. We have a saying, the strongest steel is forged from different metals. Sarafka took his hand. Her fingers were strong and warm against his. Then let us forge something new, she said. And together, hand in hand, human and Valkyrie, they walked into the future. A future neither of them could have imagined. A future built on music and laughter and touch. A future built on the simple truth that strength alone is not enough, that the strongest thing in the universe is not a weapon or an army or an empire. It is connection. It is love. It is two people. So different from each other, choosing to stand together. And if that is not humanity at its finest, then nothing is.